from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to the Tuesday night edition of the program. Happy to be here with you. Last day of July. Summer is, I guess, halfway through, maybe. Maybe that's not technical, but it's still hot. It's going to be in the 90s here in the New York area tomorrow. Anyway, our phone number, if you want to join our live national late night town hall conversation, give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And Donald Trump seems to dominate headlines most days. I'm always looking for something else to talk about. Not that I don't like Trump. I do. I just, to give you what else is going on in the world. However, he is the headline grabber. This is why he's such a thorn in the side of the Democrats, especially the Dems within the media. Because, let me tell you, he knows how to do it. He knows how to grab a headline. You know why? Because he's a man. Because he's got the cojones. Because he shows up. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the National Association of Black Journalists. They had their gathering today, their annual conference or whatnot. And he shows up. He shows up. They invite him. He says yes. Now, whether you think Kamala Harris is Jamaican or Indian or black or an American, she wasn't there. You know where else she wasn't? She wasn't there when Bibi gave his speech. What is Kamala Harris doing? You can't be conspicuously absent all the time and think that that's somehow going to be okay. It's not okay. Just telling you right now, it's not okay. People notice that stuff. But ABC News had a representative there, one of their journalists, and her name is Rachel Scott. And Rachel Scott, again, was at the National Association of Black Journalists Convention in Chicago today. And El Trompito pulled up on Trump Force One, and he showed up. And she asks him a very simple and pointed question, but only after she rips into him on this litany of attacks. Listen to this.
Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a definition then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition.
Sir, I'm asking you a question,
No,
a
you
very
have to
direct question.
Define it for me if you would.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much, and she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She is always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn, and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that
I think somebody should look into that, too, when you continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
Now, this hostile and nasty tone that he's talking about, it started in the previous question. I'm going to play that for you in a moment. But what I wanted to point out about this specific exchange was I think this is where he kind of got his footing again, and he was back onto it, answering the questions that were presented. Obviously, they're trying to pigeonhole him here into saying that he's, in fact, denying her blackness, because this is a big thing for a lot of people. And what's interesting, and maybe that was insensitive the way I put that, and that's okay. I'm going to explain what I meant. Many people, and I'm going to say I think people that aren't black, don't put being any particular color at the forefront of their daily existence. They don't, right? I don't put my hispanidad at the forefront of my daily existence. Now, it is a part of my daily existence for sure. I wouldn't say it's at the forefront. Maybe it's, right in the behind the forefront. And the reason I say that is because most people don't live their life looking through the lens of race. However, it is a real thing for people of color, some people of color, to do that, right? Many people, and I've heard this from multiple things, so this is not something that I'm particularly saying I feel. I have been called racial slurs and on rare occasion, mistreated because of my ethnic heritage. But it doesn't guide the way I live my life. Thank God it doesn't. However, I know people that it does because it's been more severe for them and it's been a different existence for them, especially if you look like me, you can get away with a lot more. There is a reality, right? Certain people have gone through life and it's challenging. A black guy said he has to walk slowly around women, in particular white women, was his thought, because he learned through his life that if he got very close to them, that they would be alarmed. So he wasn't offended by it. He was just trying to be a gentleman. And he felt like, if I get too close, because he's a real tall, big guy, almost think of like a security guard, like a bouncer. And I thought, wow, that's fascinating. I've never tried to soften my approach because someone might be, thinking a certain way about me. So I know that that's a reality for some people. And for others, it's been spoon-fed to them where they're told, listen, you must live as the oppressed because X, Y, and Z is the oppressor. White men, the establishment, Republicans, MAGA, you name it. So I just wanted to make that distinction. Number one. So I think Trump handled that question extraordinarily well. Now, before we move on, I want to get to this other controversy. This is the juicy one, right? This is the big deal. This is Rachel Scott setting up her question with a litany of attacks, as if she had a very political statement that she wanted to make and couched it in the guise of a question. Listen to this.
I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Well, first of all, I don't think I've ever been asked a question in such a horrible manner. First question. You don't even say, hello, how are you? Are you with ABC? Because I think they're a fake news network, a terrible network.
So that's Donald Trump, and he gives this response. And I've got to say, I love that he stayed calm. I love that he maintained his demeanor. If I had to give any advice, and who am I to give advice to somebody who's a former president and done a lot more public speaking than I have? But I would, I'm here to give opinions, and I'm going to give mine. I would say he should have answered those attacks. I think instead he went on, to kind of to expose her, saying, oh, you invited me here as if you wanted to have a discussion, and you didn't. It was one of the most rude introductions, and he was right in all of that. However, I think it would have been incredibly effective given the audience, right? Because debates it's always these interviews, all of it. It's about the audience. Him saying, the facts behind every story, right? The fact that they've picked every last black person and they make it about them being black when these situations are not. Like when you called 4 congresswomen of color, doesn't matter whether he could have called those. It doesn't matter who they are, right? AOC is a woman of color from Yorkshire, Yorktown Heights, excuse me, and outside of the Bronx. So go home, go back to Westchester County, New York. This is the point I'm making. He was telling them to get lost if they didn't like it, and that's fine. And I think he needed to address it that way in that moment. I think later he circled back and he started to, go head to head, not in an argumentative way, in a very calm, collected manner like he did. And I think that was extraordinarily effective when he did that, because that is honestly what I think those people in the room wanted to hear. They want to hear that, no, ma'am, it's that you're being fake news again, right? It just happens to be that Ilhan Omar said all these nasty things, and if she doesn't like it, then she's welcome to go. Of course I said that, and I would say it again, right? And double down and explain and give the context and continue to just, point by point. Now, I understand when somebody gives you an attack, sometimes callers call here, and they tell me, Rich, I want to talk about, I got 2 points. And by the time they get to the second point, they took so long on the first one, I forgot what they said in the first one. So, listen, I get it. This is not a critique on Trump's effectiveness. This is more my Monday morning quarterbacking on how you handle these hostile people. And nobody handles them better than him, honestly. So that was just something I wanted to point out. And we'll get to more of these clips from this event today, as well as everything else we've got. We've got a lot to discuss tonight. Plus, what else do we have? We have everything that's going on in the world. There was a few things I wanted to talk about. There's a book I wanted to discuss. Anyway, I'll get to that when we unpack it on the way back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Mr. Call Screener, who is a budding radio star, by the way. Richie Valdez is terrific.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Amigos, we continue our conversation. And as you heard, Kamala Harris, she ditched the National Association of Black Journalists conference today. And El Trompito Donaldus Magnus, the 45th president of these United States, showed up, and he was berated by Rachel Scott from ABC News, getting all these unfair questions. And there was a fair amount of people in the audience that seemed to have his back, that were kind of like jeering and cheering. And good for them, right? Good for all of them. But I think that the big question now becomes what is happening with the media? How are they going to handle this Kamala Harris problem that they have? I don't think Harris is scared. I don't think the Democrats are terrified, as some people are suggesting. I think that's not accurate. I think they are taking a chance. They might be cautiously optimistic. They might be even, and when I say cautiously optimistic, I mean about mitigating their loss, right? That was why they got rid of Biden, because they didn't think they could pull this off all by themselves. So, a win. So now they said, let's win. Let's try and mitigate the losses so that it doesn't go all the way down ticket. And we think Harris can help salvage some of that. So that's my thinking on this. I could be wrong. But voters don't seem to have the confidence in her. Newsmax did a poll, man on the street type of poll. And these voters, they couldn't name a single accomplishment that Kamala Harris had. Listen to this.
Can you name a few of her accomplishments?
No, I can't.
What are some of her accomplishments?
I will say that everything that I've seen, I don't think that, no.
I honestly don't think she has any. The 4 years that she was in office as vice president, I didn't hear her speak once until last week. So that's kind of my take on it.
So there you go. That's her take on it, and I think that's a lot of people's take on it. There's a poll. 39% of independent voters believe that Harris is qualified for the presidency. That means 61% don't. And that's a YouGov poll. Things are not looking good for her. So I want to get some reaction to this and the opinion of a thought leader on lots of things. She is the author of the Prophet's Dictionary, and she's also an educator and a minister, and our guest, Dr. Paula Price. Welcome.
Thank you, Rich, for inviting me.
My pleasure. Thank you for joining us. I know it's late, and not everybody likes to stay up late and talk about politics and news and everything else, but I'm glad that you did. So you heard this poll, and I'm sure you've heard the clip of Kamala Harris getting support from the media, even though she wasn't there at the National Association of Black Journalists conference, where they were beating up on President Trump, and it was almost like an ambush. And I think he handled it well after the initial jarring moment he had with Rachel Scott. But it makes sense that the voters are saying what they're saying. What are your thoughts?
Well, from my history, and I've done a lot of study on Kamala Harris, but from my history is that the woman is good at no show. We're still trying to get her to figure out if she's going to help us with the immigration thing. I don't know if she's shy or disinterested, but what I do know is that the media hype is the same that it always is with the Democrats, whereas, we're going to do you a favor, black folk. We're going to give you a black candidate, and whether they're good or bad, we're just going to give this to you. So they're using the psychological tactic of say it enough and people will believe it. But I don't think we're going to buy it this time.
Well, I hope from your lips to God's ears, right, as they say. I really hope that's the case, because I can tell you that there's some people that I know that they, on both sides, right? I've got some extreme conspiracy folks that don't watch any news. They get their news off of these crazy websites. I know some other people only get their news from CNN and others in between. And I can tell you all of them are asking me the same question. I don't know. Harris is looking like she's doing better. Trump's starting to level off. What do you think? A lot of people are getting nervous. What's your thought on that notion?
Well, Kamala Harris, we just listened today. There's a case in point, Rich. We listened today to this, scathing expose of Kamala Harris on this for this guy, Judge Brown. I forget the name of his show.
Oh, yeah, Judge Joe Brown.
And when I say this man went all the way back into her history to show how unfit she is. Talked about incompetence, injustice, talk about being biased or whatever. What I know is that no matter what Donald Trump does, the media doesn't want him because they don't want America. And very few people are willing to say this. They want, for some reason, we must be on the chopping block somewhere. I hope I can say this on your show. But we must be on the chopping block somewhere because nothing this man does. For example, just like they can't find anything that Kamala Harris actually did that she authored or sponsored or anything like that, they also can't tell you what this man did as the head of state. They can't tell you that. They can tell you, I don't like his personality. I don't like his demeanor. Well, they're trying to feed black folk on he's racist. Nobody was more racist than Biden. I'm 72 years old. I do know that. But so this is not really about Kamala or Trump. This is about who will rule America January 2025.
Outstanding. Well, I want to pull on that thread a little bit more with you right when we come back. Folks, we're on with Dr. Paula Price. If you haven't noticed already, she's a preacher, and she's starting to unload on us, and I'm loving it. She's a minister, an educator, and the author of the Prophet's Dictionary. She's also founded the Price University. You can check that out at price.university/overview is their website, and the book's available on Amazon. We're coming right back with Dr. Paula Price with me, Rich Valdez. Don't go anywhere.
By the way, your ratings are up. Congratulations. I had somebody. It's always nice to check. I like to see, even if they're friends, I like to see how are they doing. Are people listening, right?
That's
right. But you're doing great.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Kamala Harris bragged that, quote, I will proudly put my record against Donald Trump's any day of the week. I will put it against Donald Trump. This got one of the worst records in anywhere. Well, Kamala, let's go. Challenge accepted. Are you ready? Let's compare our record point by point.
That, of course, former President Donald Trump at a rally in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, back in Pennsylvania just after a couple of weeks ago, the assassination attempt on him in Butler, Pennsylvania. And he challenges Kamala Harris to compare their record. Of course, he's talking about his record as president and hers as vice president. And quite frankly, I think that's a challenge she should probably run away from. Anyway, I want to get some reaction to that. And I want to pick up also where we left off with Dr. Paula Price, who was saying that this is going to boil down to who will rule America. Dr. Paula Price, welcome back.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Amen to that. So I guess first, let's. Trump says he challenges Harris to compare records. How do you think that ends up?
Well, I mean, first of all, Kamala's record is like wide open all over the place. I'm like this girl in Australia who did a whole lefties thing, and she walked this girl's record from prosecution. My point is that she doesn't have anything that she can say she authored. She doesn't have anything that she can say she resolved. She doesn't have anything that says that she even understood being a vice president. My statement before the break was this. But no one can tell us what Donald Trump did wrong as the head of state. I need you to tell me, beyond the fraternity, we don't like you, and the school girl and college nonsense, what did this man do in the highest office of the land? Because I remember living better then than I do now.
Yeah, that's the truth. And I think ultimately that's what it boils down to for everyone. People are really going to stop and think. And I think people do have short memories for certain things, but not when it comes to their wallet. People are going to remember that they can't go on the vacation that they want to go on, or instead of doing the 14 days, they're doing 10, or instead of doing 10 days, they're doing 7, or instead of 7, 5, and instead of going maybe to Milan or to Greece, they're doing Florida or California or something like that. And people are trimming back on a lot of vacations, if they can even take a vacation. A lot of families don't even have the money for that. And I think when people realize, look, we're eating less steak, we're going out to eat less, it really makes a difference to people that their quality of life has diminished under the current administration. So I think you're spot on with that. Now, earlier you said this is going to come down to who will rule America. And of course, in the regular sense, I understand. One suspects that a president has some degree of influence over things. But you said it doesn't matter if it's Trump or if it's Kamala. It comes down to who will rule America. And I think that's very important because I think it's accurate. Tell us more.
Well, the president is only in the office for 4 years.
That's right.
So whatever they do, it's just 4 years of service. However, what they inseminate for the future, that's something different. So, yes, we want Trump. We want to have him because he is fighting for America. Now, we can look at Kamala. Let's look at Biden. They have had no problem diminishing us. I was just looking at Elon Musk's test talking about they're pushing having immigrants vote in our election. What are they going to vote for? Who gave them a credit card? Who gave them a hotel room? Who gave them what are they voting for? So, to me, from what I've been watching, the Democrats seem to be bent on demolishing us as America. Now, if I haven't been controversial enough, I just want to say my biggest issue on top of everything that we have been discussing, Rich, is this. They keep saying that Trump will destroy our democracy. My problem is we are a constitutional republic. There is no such thing as a democracy. And so for you to say that tells me you're already running on a fictitious platform. If that platform is fictitious, as we know, then what, in fact, are you going to replace us with? And why are the Democrats interested in ignoring us as a constitutional republic? We don't even want to talk about the whole bullying thing that they do. They bully us left, right, north, and south. We don't want this. They don't care. They bully us. They make laws we don't like. And if they can't make it law, Biden just signs it out as an executive order. They have pushed their agenda on us all over the place. I mean, right on up to the pronouns. Give me a break. Pronouns, come on. Don't even get me started on that. Anyway, but the point is they have let us know that we don't matter. B, somebody has already taken over America because they are brazen in their abuse of us.
Really well put. Really well put. Folks, again, just to remind you, we're on with Dr. Paula Price. She is an educator and a minister and the author of the Prophet's Dictionary. And Dr. Price, I think you're spot on here. And everything you mentioned, they're not really isolated, right? It almost sounded like you were describing the different planks of the Democrat Party's platform, if you will. And it wasn't always so radical. I mean, there was a time in my lifetime where it was a little bit more America focused. I think in recent years, we've seen some very radical politicians take hold of other politicians and certain policies and really drive that home. So I guess my question comes in two parts. A, do you agree with what I just said? And B, if you do, why is that happening?
Well, absolutely, I agree. And again, I've been around a long time, so I've seen a lot of politics. I mean, I understand, growing up, I never liked the Democrats because they always came into my, ghetto neighborhood making us promises, never showing up again. But at least they seemed interested in keeping our country. I was surprised to find out about the United Socialist States of America. People don't know that exists. The Democratic Socialist States. So somehow or another, they've been infiltrated by this socialist communist thing, agenda. And I believe the strings are being pulled from outside of our country because of people wanting us to cease being American. Now, I'm going to say something that I think is also important, and that is that the Republicans represent and stand for Christ and Christianity. They want to get rid of that. Now, they already have replacement religions, if you will, but they want to get rid of that. We're making this as if it's a strictly political situation and circumstances, but it's not. It's always spiritual, and it's about changing the spirit of the land. So, yes, I do know that they are working to demolish us because we're being dismantled bit by bit. Let's talk about, the anarchy. Let's talk about Antifa. Let's talk about tearing down the statues. And and how about defunding the police? Let us just leave you all defenseless. And then my big bugaboo, let's just disarm you as a nation. We're going to take away your weapons. Think about it. Who does that unless you know you've A, already took it over, or B, you're on the verge of succeeding?
Wow. And you know what? I totally agree with this statement. And this is where ultimately I think worldview comes into play. And for many people who share, I think, the Christian faith, if you wake up in the morning, I don't know if you live your life while you may be a black woman. I don't know that you wake up and live to be a black woman, right? I'm Puerto Rican. I don't wake up to be Puerto Rican. I happen to just wake up to live, and I happen to be Puerto Rican. And I think the main thing, the main lens that I try to live my life through, or the worldview that I have, is a Christian worldview. Doesn't make me perfect. I'm a sinner bigger than Paul. But I realize that I know right from wrong. I know true north, and I try to go that direction. And I think this is what you said is really spot on. Once they tried to eliminate, right, God, our God, because that's the biggest religion in the country, Christianity, then they can replace it with their love of government or whatever it is that, Karl Marx kind of preached in the Communist Manifesto. And with that comes disarming the population. With that comes erasing the line between male and female. And it opens the door for so many of these things that, A, I think we've seen in previous civilizations before their fall, i.e. the Roman Empire, and B, we've been taught about this. If we are students of the Bible, we've seen this happen. And it's just remarkable to me that we're seeing it play out in real time. So, Dr. Paula Price, I want you to stick with me, if you can, for a couple of more minutes. I want to get your reaction to that and kind of close out that thought. Folks, we're on with Dr. Paula Price. She is the author of The Prophet's Dictionary, an educator, a minister, and an outstanding political commentator. And we're coming right back.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
There is more news in your commentary, in your analysis, than there is on the news network.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
We who believe in the freedom to live safe from gun violence will finally pass universal background checks, red flag laws, and believe in reproductive freedom will stop Donald Trump's extreme abortion bans, and when Congress passes a law to restore reproductive freedoms, as President of the United States, I will sign it into law.
All right, America, welcome back. That is Kamala Harris at a rally in Atlanta, Georgia, yesterday in the A. And she says, we will ban assault weapons and we will stop Trump's extreme abortion bans. Now, I just want to give a little editorial update to Kamala Harris, who I like to call Que Mala Eres. We already have an assault weapons ban. Those are illegal. Just in case she forgot. Anyway, I want to welcome you back to our conversation with Dr. Paula Price. She's the author of the Prophet's Dictionary. And Dr. Price, you had mentioned this in the last segment that they're coming after our guns. She mentioned it just yesterday when she was in Georgia. I want you to touch on that and then also, give me any additional thoughts you had on what we were discussing before about the good versus evil warfare type of thing.
Oh, I'd love to. Well, whenever I watch it, like I've watched the process of the Nazis taking over the world. I've watched the process of other nations being taken over, and the pattern is the same. The first thing we do is we fuel discontentment. People become disgruntled. After that, we have the criticism. From that, once we start building the following, as far as the takeover following, the next thing we want to do is disarm the citizens. Now, since I'm a preacher, I can tell you, when I read Deborah said that when they were invaded, there wasn't a shield or spear anywhere to help them. Why? The enemy had disarmed the nations, so they couldn't fight back. That is constant. Now, we have Christians who say, well, that should be. But do you know, again, being a preacher, Jesus said, when I'm getting ready to leave, you guys buy some swords. He told us to stay armed. He told us to keep weapons. So I'm thinking that the reason that they're disarming us, just like they just did with Canada. Canada had to ask us to help them bring down a plane. Okay, they're disarming us because they do not want us to be able to fight back, defend ourselves, or protect ourselves. And I want to go on record to say guns are not the only thing that kill people. People die, are killed by poison, knives, I don't have to tell you. So that's my feelings on that. The other thing I'd like to say is that when I say about us, the good versus evil and the whole Christian thing, America, the United States of America, is the only nation that I have been able to find that was founded by Christians. All the other nations were converted to Christianity, but not the United States of America. We were founded by Christian, which is why we ended up being a Christian nation. Now, the point that I'm making here is that Queen Elizabeth I, who is one of my favorite characters, I read a lot about her, but Queen Elizabeth I said this phrase in one of her books. And she said that the Lord Jesus Christ made me queen that I could establish Protestantism in the New World, and proceeded to send Protestants, reformation, reformers to the United States. So everything that they're doing about...
that's a shame. I think we lost Dr. Paula Price, and she was on a roll. Well, we'll try and see if we can establish a connection. Tom, do you still have me? All right. Well, that's a shame. I was so into it, more than you guys were, trust me. Anyway, folks, Dr. Paula Price, make sure you check out her website and also check out the book that she has. It's called The Prophet's Dictionary, and you can get that on Amazon, The Prophet's Dictionary, The Ultimate Supernatural Wisdom. And I'm hoping that you'll get a copy or two of that. But ultimately, she nails a few serious points here, right? And a couple of these points are to me, they're critical. Because what happens is, ultimately, the United States is very unique, from its founding to how it was founded to who informed the founders. And she wasn't telling a lie, right? It's true. Many will say, no, but Ben Franklin was a deist, or he was an agnostic, or the reality was, you can try to poke holes in this, but the majority of these guys were Christians. And they weren't trying to start a theocracy. They were running away from one. They wanted to create something that was new, that honored God, but gave people the ability to do what they felt was right, to give them the liberty that they felt that God gave each individual when they were born, those inalienable rights. And that's where it's at. So I want to get your thoughts and opinions on that because, of course, that's what we do here. And we're going to do that straight ahead. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. This is America. This is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. We continue our conversation with you all, the American people. Let's go to California and check in with Austin. He's on KVTA. Austin, go right ahead. Going once. Going twice. Do we have Austin? Austin, looks like the deep state got his tongue. Sorry, Austin. Let's put him on hold. Maybe he'll figure out his comment and we can come back to him. Let's go to Bill, also known as William, from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on KDKA. Go right ahead. The deep state's gotten everybody. I see. It's the phones that are not working. That's why we lost Dr. Price and Austin and Bill, and it looks like we don't have the ability to connect with anyone. Let's try Paul in Boise just for kicks and giggles. Paul, can you hear me? Paul's probably saying, yeah, Rich, I can hear you. Can you hear me? And I can't hear anything. So that means that's not working. We'll get that fixed, hopefully. But anyway, bottom line here is, excuse me, hitting the cough button there. Bottom line, this is going to be a pivotal election, like all elections, right? There's no election that has no consequence. They're all consequential elections. But I think what's really consequential here is that there's an awakening. Right, there is a level of awareness that I think we haven't had in the past. And that awareness that we have now is key, right? That's what awakens people from their slumber. That is what matters to people when they become awakened by something. It's what matters to them, whether it's their pocketbook, the livelihood that they make, how their children are going to live. These are the issues that matter and all the issues that surround it. And it's my opinion that the candidate who's been running for the last year and a half, Donald Trump, is in a better position because he has a better record on those issues that matter most to people than Kamala Harris, who's going to run a 3.5 month campaign and doesn't have the best position on those issues. And ultimately, she's going to put forward a message that's anti-Trump, 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 and he's been doing a good job, in my opinion, of successfully saying, this is what I'm going to do. Here's how I'm going to help the situation. And that is exactly what America needs. All right, folks, keep it locked right here. That's 1 hour down, 1 hour on the way. We have a lot coming up. We're going to talk about the return of blue-collar jobs. Are Generation Z and millennials going into the blue-collar fields? I'm going to say yes. I've got a nephew that's 21, and he's been working as a plumber. He's been working as a contractor. He went to community college, thinking of becoming a cop. He's exactly going down that road, and good for him. And there's a lot of people like him. So we're going to learn more about that. Then we have a really fun time talking about America's last stand. Are we going to vote to save or destroy the country in 2024? We'll be back to that in a bit. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 2 of our program. Our phone number, if you want to join us on our late night national town hall conversation, give us a call, 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And I want to get into a couple of things here. Obviously, some headlines that are dominating the news today. And let's see, where do we go? Oh, big story. I totally, my bad. I neglected to talk about this at the beginning of the last hour, and I meant to. There was just so many things on my desk. But the folks in Iran, right? The Ayatollah Khamenei, I believe is how they pronounce it. It's a K-H. So Khamenei. He says that they are now going to strike Israel, that Iran is going to strike Israel in revenge. Why? Because they got their guy, right? The Israelis are believed to be responsible for the assassination of the Hamas leader, Haniyeh. I don't know how to say it. Honestly, I've never met the guy. I don't know the guy. Haniyeh. Yeah, my guess is as good as yours. Haniyeh. Anyway, Haniyeh. That was funny. So this might be a big deal. I'm going to bring in one of my people tomorrow to get some analysis on this because I wanted to get in some more information on it to see how it, plays out. We learned about the killing this morning. By this afternoon, early evening, we'd heard the response from Iran. So let's see what happens in the hours to come. But that was a huge, huge story that I wanted to get to. And we'll discuss it as well when we take your calls at the top of the next hour. Open phones across America. But some of the other things here, Trump just eviscerated this reporter, and we'll play some of that audio again and the parts that I didn't play a little bit later. But we also have, Kamala Harris, who, again, is not sure if she's the borders are or not. And there is a monopoly of Kamala Harris, She's going to be the only candidate on the Democrat National Committee's virtual roll call ballot. Isn't that something? Good for her. She got it. She got it locked down. And let me see if there was one more here. Oh, and the FBI. Yesterday, and we have a clip of that, I think, somewhere, but we don't need it right now. The FBI counterpart to the CIA director that was testifying yesterday in front of the Senate mentioned something about the shooter being anti-immigrant. Then the media went into this frenzy repeating that Trump was anti-immigrant, trying to connect the shooter to Trump, saying it was like a Trump supporter that shot Trump. And, of course, that couldn't be further from the truth. They went into this web archive of a social media platform known as Gab, G-A-B. And it turns out that this guy had talking points that were mimic Kamala Harris's, honestly, or someone, on the left saying that the immigration policy was harsh and things like that. So it was the exact opposite of what they said there. And there was some exchanges with senators that helped them to try to get to the bottom line. But certain bureaucrats are just expert at speaking bureaucrat, right? They know how to never answer a question and say a lot of words. That's exactly what Kamala Harris does. And that word salad isn't going to work. I think Americans are tired of it. People want to know what's really going on. Another thing that people want to know is how are they going to make some money? Because ultimately, people are losing faith in American universities. They're losing faith in, honestly, in many white-collar jobs. I don't know anybody who says, when I grow up, I want to be a politician. I want to be the president. I haven't heard a little kid tell me they want to be president in a very long time. Because a lot of white-collar jobs are becoming less prestigious in the eyes of everyday Americans. But you know what hasn't gone out of style? Being a plumber, being a mechanic, being an auto body shop technician, being a auto mechanic. I think I mentioned that, but these are things that don't go anywhere, right? People are always going to need these professions, and we've got a clip that I want you to hear. Listen to this.
Welcome back, guys, to another day in the life with a commercial electrician.
Lexia Brew is not your typical TikTok influencer.
I'm going to show you what happens when a breaker doesn't do its job and it doesn't trip.
Instead of makeup tutorials or luxury hauls, she showcases the life of an electrician to her 2.2 million followers.
I put the breaker back in and we tested for voltage and we were all good to go.
Born into a family of electricians, Abreu began posting videos of her work in 2022. Now she says she gets thousands of messages from viewers saying she made them consider a different career path.
There are so many people that comment and say that they started trades or starting looking into trades because of my videos.
Abreu's path is part of a larger trend with more young people turning to trades driven by competitive salaries and rising college costs. Last year, enrollment in trade-focused community colleges rose 16%, and the number of students studying construction trades rose 23%. This as the number of students completing undergraduate degrees dropped. As for Abreu, she's happy her career path is paving the way for the next generation.
You don't just have one route, which is college. You could go to a trade school, you could go to a tech school, you could join a union, you can join an apprenticeship, as opposed to going to college and spending all of this money.
Abreu makes $200,000 a year from her social media accounts, but she still works her day job, often 7 days a week.
That's Lionel Moyes with the report. And you know what's interesting here is this is a trend, right? There are more and more people that are willing to do it. I mentioned to you my nephew and many of his friends are happily going into blue-collar jobs. And somebody that's going to help us understand this trend a little bit better is our guest, Matt Ebert. He's the CEO of Crash Champions. He started his career as a technician and built a collision repair empire. Matt Ebert, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Good evening.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. So tell us a little bit about your thoughts on blue-collar jobs becoming very cool again as Generation Z influencers are starting to tell us more about it.
Yeah, I think their ability to reach people and opening their eyes to the possibilities of some of these blue-collar jobs is really what it's about. For so many years, the need to go to college and pursue white-collar careers has been pushed, and some of the blue-collar jobs just haven't been focused on or talked about, or maybe even sometimes looked down upon. But I would describe it as the good old-fashioned laws of supply and demand. There's a huge demand for these services, and the pay has probably come up considerably than where it was maybe decades ago. And so it's a good time to let people know all the possibilities that are out there.
And Matt Ebert, CEO of Crash Champions, tell me a little bit about your experience with this. Are you hiring a lot of Generation Z and millennial employees? Are you seeing a demand from them to get into your business?
We are. We have a shortage in the collision repair industry of about 30,000 technicians. Wow. And coming out of trade school, for example, there's only about 4,000 a year. And there's a average age that's up there in years. So with a lot of technicians that were of the baby boomer generation exiting, there's more exiting every year that are entering. So, our company, for example, there's such a need. We have apprenticeship programs where people are able to enter and train on the job and get paid while they learn. So we'll teach them. In this example, some trades probably require trade school, but ours, you can learn right on the job and make money while you learn and don't have to go into any debt at all.
Let me tell you, this stuff that you guys do, you guys are like magicians, number one, when you do collision repair. I remember my daughter had a repair that was needed on a bumper, and I tried to get smart and went to the store and bought the Bondo and all that stuff. And it's not easy in the least. And I think it's one of those things where, A, you got to learn how to do it and do it right. But B, you need practice, and you need practice next to somebody who knows how to do it so that the trial and error eventually makes sense so you can put together a good finished product that's structurally sound and not you winging it. And Do you find that that's what really keeps you in business? Is that the fact that most people can't DIY a lot of this?
Yeah, for certain, there's that factor, especially now that the vehicles have gotten very sophisticated. And so there is it's almost impossible to do it in your own garage anymore. Yeah. But also, I also would say that has broadened the interest because the cars are just as much a computer today as they are a machine. And so it's a little bit of a generalization, right? But for those that maybe were interested in something technical to do, there's a tech angle to the vehicles today that also kind of broadens the audience for who might be interested in doing it.
Yeah. And I just want to remind the audience that as CEO of Crash Champions, this is not, your local auto body, although it may be for many. You're operating 600 locations in 37 states. So when you're talking about attracting new millennial and Gen Z employees, you're talking about doing it really on a nationwide level.
That's correct. Yes. The challenge for us is there's such an interest level. Really, the challenge for us is growing the mentors, because it takes both the skill of fixing a car well and the ability to teach and the patience to teach. And so it's not where every technician is a great teacher of what they do. So for us, the work has really been in effort with the mentors. And if we're getting more and more of them and able to welcome more into the program.
Outstanding. Now, if people want to learn more about the work that you're doing at Crash Champions, how do they find you? Where do they go?
Sure. Appreciate that. Our website is crashchampions.com. And on the website, you'll find it's called the STEP program, which is our apprentice program. And there's also an ASAP apprentice program, which is similar in that it teaches people on the job how to do the administrative part, the estimating part of the business. And so we're teaching, I guess that could be considered a white collar portion of a blue collar career. And we're teaching both of them. So you find both of those programs on the website.
Well, I wish you the best and continued success, and we'll definitely have you back on to get updates on this and anything else that's related to collision repair, because I think it's a fascinating topic, and who knows more about it than you guys. You guys are Crash Champions. Matt Ebert, I want to thank you for being with us, and Godspeed to you, sir.
Thanks again. Yeah.
You bet. All right, folks, your calls and more are coming up straight ahead. The phone number is 833-482-5337, 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
You have experience and skills in interviewing, or you wouldn't be on your program.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, America, welcome back. Amigos, we continue our discussion. Let's go to Wilmington, North Carolina, WRNN. Check in with Cliff. Go right ahead. You're on with Rich Valdez.
Hey, buddy. Randomly, I ran across your show tonight, and I just want to give you props on how you connect everything together, across the board with different demographics. And, it's kind of like, and I heard what you were saying about George Washington and so on and so forth. But, and there was a certain time that was called the Age of Enlightenment. And I think we're going through that again, And it needs to be recognized. It needs to be pushed. It needs to be enforced. And I just wanted to give you props, because, the older I get, I got kids and stuff, and I just love it. But I didn't just dive down the rabbit hole. I ate it up, and so the knowledge.
You jumped in and you moved in.
Like so much, yeah. But it's been out there for a long time. I mean, it really has. But it's what they call like the open domain. You know what I'm talking about? So
Sure,
it's restricted.
yeah. And to go back to what you were just saying about the Enlightenment. I don't know that we're going through another Enlightenment, but I will say I think there might be a renaissance, right? A renaissance of the Enlightenment, or a reawakening of our knowledge of it, and a revival. How about that? That's probably a better word, because the reality is I think the Enlightenment was a once in a lifetime type of thing where you had all of these very big intellectuals, religious intellectuals, moral intellectuals that really drove this movement and influenced many who were founders and those that ratified, our founding documents. And I'm talking about even the ones that influenced it, like the Magna Carta. So it was a fascinating time in history where there was this true enlightenment, right? People were digging in their Bibles. And I'm seeing some more of that. I know a lot of young people in their 20s and younger that are regularly reading their Bibles and making a push towards abstinence, and not because they're hyper religious. These people don't even go to church. They have an affinity for a closeness with their Creator and an affinity for trying to do what they believe is right. And that's something I didn't see when I was 19. For example, I went to church at 19 and I met church people at 19. But when I was outside of church, everybody that was a 19-year-old guy was acting like a 19-year-old guy. And that's part of what I think is unique about today, that there really is a revival that I can see. Anyway, Cliff, thank you for your call. I really appreciate it. Thank you for listening to the show. I hope you'll call back again often. Let's go to Sarah, Bedford, Indiana. WBIW, go right ahead.
Hey, great to talk to you. No disrespect to your present guest, but your last guest, Dr. Paula Price.
Yes.
When she got cut off, she talked about the communism was bought in the United States, and she's dead right. Make a long story short, it is not a race thing, and in the late 1800s, there were a lot of nativists that didn't like Southern Europeans or Slavic people and whatever. So I'm not trying to confuse the argument.
Right.
That was an issue then. However, it's like today's immigrants. There's some good people, but sprinkled in there, just like you got gangsters and stuff, sprinkled in that diaspora from Southern and Eastern Europe, there were socialists and communists who came here with the idea of spreading socialism and communism. And you had the Haymarket bombings. You remember the Palmer raids. So the thing is that you had a lot of fellow travelers, and then we entered in World War II, and, of course, we thought the Soviet Union was an ally. You had a lot more communists. They made converts, too. So by the time McCarthy rolled around, it was no longer just an immigrant thing or, they came from overseas. There were some old blue bloods who were hardcore socialists. So she's dead right. It's not that we never had socialists or communists that were kind of native to this country in the 1800s before the big diaspora. But what I'm trying to say, amongst all those immigrants, there were some bad seeds, and they sowed bad seeds. So
well, you're spot on, Sarah. And I got to say, you did all of that in 58 seconds. It takes me a whole 8 or 9 minutes to break stuff down like that. You should have a radio show, too. Sarah in Bedford, Indiana, WBIW, thank you. I appreciate your listenership as always. And folks, we're coming right back. We're going to continue our conversation with you all and more. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez.
Rich Valdez, who, again, will do a fine job, and I know you'll enjoy listening to him.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, amigos, welcome back. We continue our late-night national town hall conversation, live and national, straight across the country. Here's the phone number if you want to join us, 833-4825-337, 833-4-VALDEZ. And, of course, in the third and final hour of the program, we go back to our time-honored tradition known as Open Phone America. Open Phone America was started by Larry King 46 years ago, back in 1978. I happen to have been born in 1978 and am 46 years old. So Open Phone America is as old as me. And it's my honor to continue that tradition that was carried on by the late, great Jim Bohannon. And, of course, you and me, we carried on tonight with your calls. 833-4-VALDEZ is the number. Now, earlier I mentioned that the Israelis are suspected of putting out a hit on a guy named Haniya, who is a Hamas political leader, and they killed him, but they killed him in Tehran. This got the Iranians very, very, very upset, and now they're saying they're coming back, and they're going to have revenge, and they're all sorts of mad. But we've got Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, through a translator, describing a little bit of what happened. Listen to this.
Since the beginning of the war, I have made it clear that we are in a struggle and battle against the Iranian axis of evil. This is an existence war with a stronghold of foreign militaries and missiles that they wish to strangle us with. In my speech in Congress a few days ago, I mentioned three main tentacles of this axis of evil: Hamas, Houthis, and Hezbollah, the three H's. Over the past few days, we have given a very strong blow to two of them. 3 weeks ago, we attacked the Chief of General Staff of Hamas, Mohammed Deif, and then 2 weeks ago, we had an Air Force strike in Yemen, which is a very far target. And yesterday, we targeted Fouad Shukr, the General Staff of the Military Chief of General Staff of Hamas. I'd like to thank the IDF, the Shin Bet, the Intel Directorate, and the Air Force, and all security branches on very precise execution in three different fronts. Muhsan was the person directly in charge of the massacre of our children in Majd al-Shams. He was responsible for the murder of many other Israelis. He was responsible for the incessant attack on our people in the north over the past 9 months of war. He was one of the most wanted terrorists in the world. There was a prize by the U.S. for $5 million, and there's a reason for that prize. He was involved in the murder of 241 American soldiers and 58 French soldiers in Beirut in '83. He was a main element in the connection between Iran and Hezbollah. He was in charge of the entire missile operations of Hezbollah.
And that is, again, a report from I-24 News of Benjamin Netanyahu in his address earlier today. Again, reiterating, anyone who harms Israel will be killed. Now, something else on that front that I need to mention before we go anywhere. The 9/11 mastermind, in addition to bin Laden, you know, the main guy, the main coordinator, KSM, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, he cuts a deal with the U.S. government, and guess what? No death penalty for him. So him and these two other pendejos, guess what? They live, and now they live permanently on a beautiful island called Cuba. Cuba, yeah, Guantanamo Bay. You got so many of my good friends that believe that people are going to get hung at Gitmo on Guantanamo Bay, and we can't even kill the terrorists on Guantanamo Bay. That's what's going on there. We'll get into that a little bit more a little bit later. But so much to be discussed. There really is a lot to be discussed. I really sometimes wonder, what does the future have in store? Is this America's last stand? Well, somebody who understands whether this is America's last stand or not is the author of the book, America's Last Stand. Will you vote to save or destroy America in 2024? Drew Thomas Allen, is the author of the book. Welcome, sir.
Hey, Rich, a.k.a. El Macho. It's good to be with you, my friend. And I got to tell you, it's so refreshing, your show. I mean, if you get off of social media and off of, if you don't watch CNN and stuff like that, it's so encouraging. There's so many signs of encouragement out there. Your callers, that last one in particular that was so succinct and so knowledgeable. Yeah. And you're right. This is a renaissance. And in fact, that the book, America's Last Stand, I actually was working on another book called American Renaissance. And the whole premise was that we just need to reclaim what has almost been forgotten, right? That which the founders gave us based on their experience with these regressive systems that the Democrats Democrats claim are progressive. But, I'm not Victor Davis Hanson, so my publisher was like, this is 100,000 words. I'm not publishing a 100,000-word book. So I cut it down to 50,000, and I happened to realize, look, this is an important election. So I just I made it the fundamental important arguments need to be made and the information given to kind of resurrect us right now in this dire time of need.
Yeah, well, Drew Thomas Allen, a.k.a. DTA, what something is said was interesting, and I'll give that the benefit of the doubt, but I will likely push back and say that it's not that I think Americans have forgotten, it's that we have been robbed of our history because of the left within academia, making sure that we don't know, and the left within the establishment of public schools, making sure that we were not really teaching America. We don't teach the Enlightenment. We don't teach so much of the founding documents. And you combine that with people just being lazy, and voila, we have this recipe for disaster that we have today. So let's talk about the book, because obviously, like you said, you're not VDH, but you're on your way. And I think that's a great topic and a great title. Let's talk about this book, America's Last Stand. Will you vote to save or destroy America in 2024? This primer that you've put together, what's I guess, the main takeaway that you want the readers of your book to leave with?
Well, when I was kind of rewriting it and reforming it, I kind of thought back to Thomas Paine and his book, Uncommon Sense. Yeah, and exactly. Common Sense. Yeah, I wrote another book, a pamphlet called Uncommon Sense, because it's now uncommon. But anyway, Common Sense, exactly. What was so significant about that work was that it made the American people, the colonists at the time, actually discuss these issues. And we spend so much time, watching Netflix or avoiding confrontation because it's uncomfortable. And so, one of my premises was to explain to people through historical context, by encouraging them to, just how significant this moment was in our history, is in our history. We are the patriots of 2024, I argue. And, look, we've been through difficult circumstances. If you want to go back to the founding in 1776, they fought a war, right? The American Revolution, which went on for a decade. I mean, mind-blowing. And then you fast forward, we went through the pains of the Civil War. Horrific, but we've always been truly progressing towards those ideals set forth. And this is just as important as a moment in our history as those two situations as well. And, I believe that unlike Barack Obama, who claims that, we have racism in our DNA, I mean, maybe the Democrat Party does, certainly. If you look at this, the way they're pitching this election, certainly that seems to be true. But we have patriotism in our DNA. So, my purpose was to make people aware, to get them to embrace that we are in a perilous situation, because only through acknowledging the severity of the situation can you actually hope to overcome it, right? So that was one of the significant hurdles. And then to give people the arguments they need. I mean, right now, what's so interesting to me is, and it wasn't really the big purpose of the book, but I've got a number of chapters that are about the Democrat Party's history with racism, because they have lied, just like you said. They've done a disservice by rewriting our history. And they claim, of course, I call it the myth of the big switch. They claim that, in 1964, when Republicans were responsible for putting the Civil Rights Act of 1964 on Lyndon Baines Johnson's desk, because the Democrats had a supermajority. They didn't need any Republican support, but they didn't have the support from their own party. They claimed that was the moment that Republicans suddenly switched. Despite the Democrats' entire history of opposing black rights, suddenly in that moment, they became the champions of blacks. And, we, MAGA, Republicans, we became, these racists. And it's not true.
Folks, I'm going to pause right here. We're coming right back with Drew Thomas Allen, author of the book, America's Last Stand. Will you vote to save or destroy America in 2024? Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. The best guests, the best opinions. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
One thing that is noteworthy that cannot be missed when we put up the screen of the short list, if you will, all of them are white men. Most of them are Democratic governors. You are a very prominent, very well-known and respected Democratic governor yourself. Does it bother you that they're all white men?
No, not at all. Not at all, because I don't want to look at gender here. I really don't think it's fair, because we have a lot of talented women governors. I text them all the time. The men are very talented. So that's the beauty of what we have here, is that we have a lot of talent. So I'm not going to take offense that she doesn't pick a woman or a person, from some particular state at all. Whoever she picks, it's going to be a dynamic duel. No doubt about it.
No doubt about it. That's Governor Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York. And she's talking about how it doesn't bother her that they're white men. And they asked her, does it bother you that they're white men? She says, it doesn't bother me that they're men. She didn't mention the white part. and I played that for that purpose, because the conversation we were having right before the break was how the Democrats have a race problem. And it's not a favorable one, right? It's an unfavorable race problem that they have. And our guest is Drew Thomas Allen. He is the author of America's Last Stand, Will You Vote to Save or Destroy America in 2024? And Drew, tell me what you think of Kathy Hochul's commentary in light of the conversation we were just having on race.
Well, I mean, it's so dishonest, firstly, for her to suggest that, she doesn't or they don't care about, gender, and it doesn't bother her that the white men. I mean, Joe Biden, of course, when he was selecting his vice president, or, the people behind the scenes were doing it for him, just like they selected him and now Kamala Harris, he made it clear that, he was looking to at a selection of black women, African-American women. And he did the same thing with Ketanji Brown Jackson, right, the Supreme Court justice. So they're obsessed with this. But, there's something that Governor Hochul there and Kamala Harris have in common, and that's kind of the way they have gotten to their positions. I mean, if Andrew Cuomo hadn't have been caught up in that scandal and basically, he resigned, she might not be where she was, and Kamala Harris, of course, is finding herself in this position of potential ultimate power, if you will, because of Joe Biden's own, effectively resignation, at least resignation from the race, right?
Right. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And to me, this is the hypocrisy, right? It's just astounding to me that they want it one way, but they have it another way. And all they can do right now is say that J.D. Vance is weird, or that Republicans are weird. And it's everywhere. And I think it's weird that they're using this line of attack. I don't know what your opinion on that is, but I find it weird. And I'm not trying to be punny. I find it very odd, very unusual. I'm guessing there's some focus group somewhere that said, this guy's weird. Let's hone in on this. And that's really going to hurt Trump somehow. I don't see how that happens, because I think Trump could run with you or with me or one of our producers and do just as well in the upcoming election. So why do you think they're coming at Vance and now I guess they're trying to loop Trump into this with this whole attack that they're weird?
Well, they're desperate, and you have to come up with these other reasons, right? Trump's a threat to democracy, or J.D. Vance is weird because these people, unlike the Democrat candidates, are actually qualified. I find it so mind-boggling that, even Democrat voters or business owners out there, they wouldn't hire Kamala Harris to run their convenience store that's in their arsenal. They wouldn't they wouldn't hire her to manage a Taco Bell in their arsenal, their portfolio, because she's not qualified. And yet, J.D. Vance, in contrast, for example, just to use him, we know about Trump and his record. He's been president before. We've experienced life under him. But J.D. Vance is somebody who's lived the American dream. I mean, this is somebody who should be celebrated regardless of politics. I mean, obviously he's got his book out there, Hillbilly Elegy, but this is a guy who came from a broken family, a drug-addicted family. I mean, it's insane. He's kind of like, Dr. Ben Carson, that came out of this place and managed to succeed. He went to Ivy League schools. He served in the Marine Corps and became a business owner. I mean, this is somebody who has achieved, right? And yet Democrats, these same Democrats that know that Kamala Harris isn't qualified to do menial tasks. I mean, I wouldn't trust her to clean the gymnasium. They would elevate her and support her to run the most powerful country in the United States of America, which now, even though, there's a broad argument, we can talk about how ridiculous it is. I mean, that we have to worry about this government that has so much power they never should have in the first place. The president, whoever we elect should not have the ability to determine whether or not we stay our course or become socialist or Marxist or whatever else. But that's kind of what I'm looking at. And it's just mind-boggling to me that people don't have any sense of self-preservation even, for their children, like you were saying before, their families, their situations, that they ignore all that. So yeah, I mean, they can't go with the achievements because Kamala is Joe Biden 2.0. She's the vice president. She is the border czar. She is failed. So they have to go with these juvenile tactics, right? He's weird. I mean, what country are we living in? The greatest country in the world, and this is the campaign? This guy's weird?
Right. That's exactly my point, and really well put. Drew Thomas Allen, we're coming right back, and when we come back, I want to get your take on this framing of a criminal versus a prosecutor. Does it work? Does it not work? Your thoughts and more when we come back. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Listen, if I and my colleague John Ossoff, an African-American man and a Jewish man, can win in Georgia, Kamala Harris can win in Georgia. The contrast between these two campaigns could not be more stark. I mean, you literally have a criminal running against a prosecutor. But more importantly, I think when you look at the contrast between Project 2025, which wants to cut the civil service, that wants to get rid of programs like Head Start.
That is Senator Raphael Warnock on MSNBC yesterday saying that we have a criminal versus a prosecutor. Our guest, DTA Drew Thomas Allen, author of America's Last Stand. What say you? Does this work?
Well, thankfully, he's not going to be around much longer, but I think it's brilliant for us to exploit. I'm so happy they're going to choose to hopefully go with this because, firstly, there is her actual prosecutorial record, which is, giving soft criminals hard sentences and hard criminals soft sentences. But beyond that, we saw how this played in public perception with the American people. Every time they persecuted Trump like this, he went up in the polls. So I welcome this because, at the end of the day, Kamala Harris is Alvin Bragg on a diet in a wig. And I think that is how you explain this to the American people. So, yes, continue, be the female Alvin Bragg because Americans love him and saw what he did to Donald Trump. So, sure. I mean, this, to me, there's an easy way to transform this into a victory because it plays into the narrative, the truth, actually, that we've experienced. It's one of the biggest reasons we have to win because we do have this kind of Soviet-style injustice system that has come about in America.
Drew, take 15 or 20 seconds to let everybody know how they find you, how they got a copy of the book, and how they keep up to speed with the work that you're doing.
Sure. So the book is America's Last Stand, Will You Vote to Save or Destroy America in 2024? You can find that on Amazon. That's the best place. And then drewallen.substack.com or Drew Thomas Allen on X.
Outstanding. Folks, give him a follow. Check out his work. Drew Thomas Allen, DTA, congrats on the book. Good luck with it. Godspeed to you. Thanks for joining us.
God bless you, El Macho.
Folks, we're coming right back with the rest of your calls and more. Don't go anywhere. 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ.
From the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hi there, good evening, and what's up, America? I am Rich Valdez, Valdez with an S, at Rich Valdez on all of the social media. Welcome to hour number 3 of the program, and a quick editorial note. Well, before I do that, I'll give you the number, 833-482-5337, 833-4-Valdez. Join us, we're live, we're national, looking forward to speaking with you. And the editorial note that I wanted to note here was that at the top of hour number 1, I announced the program as the Tuesday edition of the program, and today's Wednesday. So forgive me for the fake news. I stand corrected. It is Wednesday. I was traveling on Monday, and it kind of threw me all off. And I was in beautiful, sunny, warm Puerto Rico. It was fantastic, by the way. Maybe I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But if you want to see the pictures, they are on my Instagram account. That's at Rich Valdez with an S. They might be on Facebook too, but I think I put them on Instagram. Now, I want to talk about a few things, right? I want to get your thoughts on so many things. We've discussed a lot of things about millennials and Generation Z entering the workforce as blue-collar workers. We also talked about the future of this election, and we also talked about good versus evil. That was a big conversation we had in the first hour of the program. And the spiritual component, if you will, or the moral component, which sometimes are one and the same, with this battle of rhetoric that we're having. But something I want to slide into, in addition to the reports that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and a couple of other 9/11 masterminds have been spared their lives. They're going to live in Club Fed forever on Guantanamo Bay in Cuba. Cuba is very much like Puerto Rico, immensely larger, but the weather's not that different, right? The beaches aren't that different. It's gorgeous there. And I don't know how much outside time these guys get, but just imagine, being, you could be in worse places, right? It's like Siberia or something like that. These guys are in Club Fed in Cuba, Gitmo, and that doesn't seem very fair to me. But we also have the assassination of this gentleman. What is his name? I say gentleman very loosely. His name is Ismail Haniyeh. He is a Hamas leader, and he was assassinated, and now Iran is hell-bent on getting at Israel. We talked about that as well. But something I want to get into before we recap some of those things with you all, the callers, 833-4-Valdez, is this. I want to discuss this media frenzy, right? This idea that if they just come out every day and say something, that everybody will believe it. Now, I get that. In theory, that works, right? I think it was Joseph Goebbels, the propagandist for the Nazis, that said that. You repeat the lie often enough, everybody will believe it as truth. I get that. I really do. And I think most of my critics think that's what we're doing here. They think, you just keep saying it and people think it's true. But I realize that people have the ability to think for themselves and conduct their own deductive reasoning to come up with things, right? I'm not in your pocket. Ultimately, if you're voting on pocketbook issues, these pocketbook issues are going to be important to you. And it's your pocketbook that's going to decide on those issues, not mine. So it doesn't matter what I say. If I tell you, look, Donald Trump, blah, 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 doesn't matter. If you say, no, you know what? I was dead broke. I didn't get a job offer until Biden took office. I didn't start making money until Joe Biden was sworn in. Then guess what? You're going with Biden. And there's nobody changing your mind if you're voting on pocketbook issues. Likely, you're not voting for Biden because that didn't happen, right? That was just an example I was making. But the media has been out there saying lots of things. And one of the things that we're hearing in the media is Kamala's up. The Drudge Report absolutely hates Trump. And I don't mean to give them a shout out or a plug, but I went on there before just to see what headlines they were promoting. And of course, they were promoting some very, very detrimental ones. Kamala has a 4-point lead over Trump, this, that, and the other. And again, nothing wrong if she does. There's an ebb and flow to these things. But the reality is, why would she have a lead over Trump? What would the benefit be of voting for Kamala Harris? Now, I realize that Americans are susceptible to news that they like. They hear something they like, they run with it. And I say Americans because I mean this on every side of the aisle. As you guys know, I have a relative, and my brother as well, that are hardcore conspiracy theorists. And I use that word because that's the word everybody uses. It doesn't mean that I think everything that he talks about is not real or fake or whatever, but these are theories, right? These are theories. They're not necessarily conspiratorial all the time. Half the time they're right, but the other half the time they're fake, phony fraud. And one of these conspiracies that he has is that there's not going to be an election, that Biden's not really the president. The Biden that we see is not even the real Biden. That Biden was killed, or he's over there, and they killed him in Gitmo, but they did not kill KSM and the rest of these guys, right? And again, it just these theories are so far-fetched and impossible to prove that it's useless to discuss them. How could you get into an argument with somebody who's trying to argue with you the weight of air, right, in his hand, cupping air? How do you argue with someone like that? You can't. So I take everything with a grain of salt. But on the other side, you've got people in the media making the claims that Kamala's doing better on the border. She is the border candidate. She's kicking butt at the border. I don't care how many times somebody says that. We've seen what happened in this country. Everybody knows what's going on in America. So I think that stuff is only going to go but so far. But there's a huge podcaster, comedian, UFC host, Joe Rogan. I'm sure some of you are very familiar with him. And if those of you who aren't, he's a terrific talent. And he's a real middle-of-the-road kind of guy, right? He's probably very liberal on a lot of issues. And there's a few where he has positions similar to me. And I think a lot of that came up by way of COVID. And saying, and his free speech position that he takes as a comedian. Anyway, long story short, President Trump says at the rally earlier that he is going to win big and we're going to make this election so big, too big to rig. Listen to this.
This November, the American people are going to reject Kamala Harris's dangerous liberal extremism in a massive landslide. We're going to, too big to rig, right? Too big to rig. Too big to rig. We're not going to let her turn the United States into a communist San Francisco colony. We're not going to let it happen.
And that is El Trompito at his rally. A landslide victory, too big to rig, too big. And I love that. I really love that for him and for America. However, Rogan has a different perspective. Listen to this.
She's going to win.
No, she's not.
She can win.
She absolutely can win. I do not think she's going to win because the more she talks, like in 2020, how bad do you have to be that you can't even make Iowa? She couldn't even compete with the mayor of South Bend.
I feel like we are in this very bizarre time where people are giving in to the bullshit in a way that I never suspected people would before. And this is one, they just want no Trump, no matter what, and they're willing to gaslight themselves to think that. And by the way, I think Hillary could win.
All right, that's Joe Rogan. And I'm not going to discount what he's saying as wrong. I'm not. What I am going to say is there's just no real reason to believe that should be the case from where I sit. From where I sit, I see a candidate in Trump that's really good at what he does, who just survived an assassination attempt, who's raised a heck of a lot of money, and who has been doing this for a couple of years, versus someone who just became the de facto nominee, was not elected in a primary, didn't really do anything to earn the position she's in, but that doesn't really matter because she's still the vice president and she's running for president. And whatever the case may be, ultimately, what ends up happening here is that people are susceptible to the BS that Rogan is talking about. And that is affecting people because you've got people in the media just blatantly lying. But I'm going to leave Rogan to what he does best. Create the most listened to podcast, do great interviews at UFC, and put on a very decent, a very funny stand-up show. And I'll disagree with him on this one because even the Democrats, and I'm gonna risk, because I don't know this for a fact, but I'm gonna risk my prediction skills here and say that Nate Silver from 538, I'm gonna say I think he's a Democrat, and maybe he's an independent that votes Democrat. But Nate Silver, he just released his first election model since Harris became the presumptive Democrat nominee. And he had released one earlier, and it's not too different from that one. As you know, he's a statistician, and today, or yesterday rather, he released the first election model since VP Kamala Harris became the presumptive Democrat nominee. He wrote on his Substack that although Harris is favored to win the popular vote, like most Democrats do, she is a, quote, modest underdog to Trump in the Electoral College, risking a repeat of the popular vote / Electoral College split that cost Democrats the 2000 and 2016 elections, end quote. So Nate Silver believes that she'll do better than Biden would have done as incumbent challenger, saying Biden only had a 27% chance of beating Trump before he withdrew from the race. But ultimately, Trump wins. And that's the key, right? That's the key. So while I appreciate what Rogan is saying, and I think we should take heed to it, we should be very concerned that Kamala can win. By no means is this locked up. Every time I see a social media post from somebody saying, Trump just said we shouldn't pay taxes on whatever, he just won this vote. I don't agree. I think this is going to be a powerful election that can be a very big election and a huge win for Trump and for the American people. But we've got to work hard, and we can't take it for granted, not even for a second, not even a little bit. So I want to get your thoughts on that and everything else that we've discussed tonight. Was Rogan right? Was Rogan wrong? Is Nate Silver right? Is Nate Silver wrong? Was Trump right when he said we're going to have a landslide too big to rig? Or was he wrong? I want to know your thoughts on those questions. 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, the West Coast is lively tonight. We've had calls from California. We got another call here from Oregon, Pendleton, Oregon. Let's go back to the phones, 833-4-VALDEZ. I am Rich Valdez here with you for another half hour or so, till 1 a.m. Eastern time. If you're in the Central time zone, then that's an hour less. I'm with you till midnight. But I want to check in with our friend Monica, Pendleton, Oregon, KUMA. Go right ahead.
Hi, Rich. How are you doing this evening?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, great. So a few questions arise. This is strange. So when I was listening to your show, I think it was last week sometime, I was like cooking and this, that, the other for the family, and I could have sworn I heard a blurb about, in one of his rallies, Donald Trump addressing like this whole 2025 thing, and all I heard was, well, I've never heard of this, and something, something, something. Well, oddly, now this is strange. So, I'm trying to find this thing on YouTube. I couldn't find it, and I'm only seeing, the other side of the coin where they're using that thing against them. I tried to search Google. I couldn't find it. I'm not even a bother with Facebook. I couldn't find it. So I'm thinking, yep. And then now I'm hearing that they're trying to edit and delete pictures where his face is all bloody from that god-awful assassination. And it was actually our daughter who brought up this whole 2025 thing, and we're actually trying to teach her critical thinking. Where's the source? You can't believe everything you hear. And just on a side note, quasi non sequitur, I suppose, sure. I've learned that mainstream media is you can't count on them because, well, as a kid, I grew up being a fan of Michael Jackson, so there is that. And Michael has interacted with Donald Trump's kids and has sought advice, how he should approach his own children. That I know for a fact.
Yeah, well, I don't know anything about that, Monica, but what I can say is that 2025, I think Project 2025 as it's known, was it's a document that was written by the Heritage Foundation, and it's not really called the 2025 Project, right? It's called, I had it open on my computer, but some other conservative agenda that they had on the website. And it's nothing really out of the ordinary. It's nothing that you haven't heard on most conservatives talk about, which I think is interesting. It's really just the interpretation that the left has on everything, right? So if I say I believe in meritocracy, someone on the left is going to turn to me and say, well, you're a racist. That means you don't believe in DEI. You don't believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because in order for us to be equitable, we have to make sure that there are people of color in every position within the organization. And whichever organization, right? And you've seen corporations, many of them, and I'm sure for good reason and with good intentions, contacting their employees and making job postings saying, look, if you find us a person of color for a job, we'll give you an extra bonus as opposed to what we would normally give you, for an employee referral fee type of thing. And people are all over the place trying to go with this trend because they don't want to be the last corporation on the block that doesn't have a VP or, someone or a CEO or someone that is not a person of color so that they don't get labeled as racist or bigoted or anything like that. The reality, though, is you just have to ask. Go to a predominantly Asian neighborhood or black neighborhood or whatever neighborhood and just do your own survey and ask them, what type of work do you want to do? I mean, the reason stereotypes are funny oftentimes or accurate at times is because there's a degree of truth to them. So ultimately, the left doesn't like the fact that we want to close the border. The left doesn't like a lot of things that are in this conservative agenda that the Heritage Foundation put out. And that's why they take exception to it and try to paint Trump as something that he isn't. And that's really what we're talking about. So, folks, I want to continue the other question as well as this one. Don't go anywhere. I'm Rich Valdez. Thank you, Monica.
No hair, no care, and live on the air. It's Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, America, welcome back. Rich Valdez. And we're going to get into a little bit of this. What's going on with the media? right? Because the media is kind of a little all over the place with this. She's the border czar. She's not the border czar. Now she's the best person on immigration. And I'm concerned, honestly. I'm concerned about how all of that is going to be. And we're tracking down a clip of audio. And as soon as we have it, I'm going to continue with this. But until we get it, I want to continue to talk to you, the American people. So let us see. Where do we go here? We go to Eduardo, Tampa, Florida. Listening online, richvaldez.com. Go right ahead.
Yeah, Rich, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to comment that I've been hearing the name Governor Tim Walz for BP, and I think I'm hoping that she does, because that is where George Floyd started, and all this wokeness with the DAs and all this, and the Summer of Love. And I think that's something that we can capitalize if that pick happens on the crime.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, Tim Walz might be an attack dog, and it may very well be him. Right? Again, if my theory is correct, and my theory on this is they knew they were going to lose with Biden. That doesn't mean that by going with Harris, they know they're going to win. It's quite the contrary. I think with Harris, they know that she will do better than Biden. She won't lose as bad in down ballot races. And that's really, I'm not going to budge from that one, because I believe that to be true. So if that is the truth, that they're just mitigating loss and they're going to play up and, call all their friends in polling and say, look, I need a poll showing she's great, she's ahead of Trump, anything they can do to try and create a groundswell that will counter what Trump has amassed over the last couple of years and what they, in fact, created for Trump, right? The momentum that they created with every single one of their phony indictments, the momentum that they created when they kept saying he was a threat to democracy with every last crazy hearing, January 6th, all of it. When you look at that, the phony impeachments, they created this juggernaut of MAGA that exists right now. So with all that being said, I think, Tim Walz is great at being an attack dog. He's out there. He's probably a little bit more vicious than, let me see who these other guys are. We got Gary Peters, never heard of him. Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly's nice, and I've seen him try to get a little fancy, a little snippy. But the reality is he is a space cadet, and literally he's a NASA guy, and the husband of Gabby Giffords. So he's an emotional heartstrings kind of candidate, gun control, science, not the attack dog that you think Tim Walz is. Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Now, Buttigieg is, it would behoove him, I think, if he wants to keep his name out there for a presidential run, unless he's like, I don't want to run and lose again. I already did that last time. So maybe I sit this one out as a cabinet secretary and then run next time. Okay, that makes sense too. So maybe he's not interested. And then you've got Josh Shapiro, because I think Whitmer has announced that she's officially out. And that was the one that I was thinking of, and probably because Matt Gaetz said that was his pick for Harris when he predicted accurately that Biden would withdraw and that Harris would take his place. So he was wrong on the Whitmer part so far, unless, that happens. But we're scheduled to have Matt Gaetz on the program maybe tomorrow or sometime this week. So we will follow up on his election prediction. But going back to this, Eduardo. So, yeah, I think you're probably right that Tim Walz might be the guy, especially that they know that there is a level of support in Minnesota. They will take to the streets. They will burn stuff. They will do all sorts of things. So why not? Why not use that guy? And I think he's probably as good a guy as any. So we'll see. I think you might be right. And yes, I also agree with you that we can also capitalize against that if our position is accurate for the masses, right? So on talk radio or on conservative commentary programs, you might have an audience that's very sympathetic to, you say the Summer of Love and they all know. And they're like, oh, yeah, I remember that debacle. But others may not, like the people that work for a living and don't watch the news, don't listen to the radio, don't care about any of that stuff. They just want to make their money, pay less taxes, and live a decent life where they go on vacation once or twice a year. They don't know anything other than when Michael Steele comes out and makes crazy statements. So ultimately, I think the media plays a disastrously large role in misinforming people and, in this case, disinforming people. And it really is a tragedy. Eduardo, I want to thank you for your call. I want to play that audio that I just mentioned to you. Big shout out to everybody listening in Florida, by the way. And I'm going to play 2 clips for you. The first of which is Michael Steele, the former lieutenant governor of Maryland, a former Republican. This guy was the chair of the Republican National Committee, like Lara Trump and Whatley. But he turned states, got a gig at MSNBC, and he's their official former Republican there that hates Trump. He hates everything Republican now. But Michael Steele said this.
I think Zerlina nailed it, that the evidence on this issue of immigration stands on the side of the vice president right now. Why? Because she can trot out the Republicans who were supportive of the bill. She can trot out the video of the author of the bill, the conservative Senator Langford, who was on record saying, yeah, Donald Trump blew this up. Absent this, though, if we did not have this bill in place, you're absolutely right. This issue would be a very difficult one for the vice president to navigate. But she has
a very difficult one to navigate. And the reason it's difficult to navigate is because she's wrong no matter what. She's wrong no matter what. There are tens of millions of new people in our country. You can call them migrants. You can call them illegal aliens. You can call them invaders. You can call them whatever you want. But they're here. And they didn't come here during Trump's tenure. They came here during her tenure, during the tenure that she had as border czar. And again, if you don't want to call her the border czar, we'll call it President Biden's person taking the lead at the border, which is typically a czar position, right? But whatever. The head of border issues for the Biden-Harris administration, Vice President Harris, the one who said, don't come, right? And she'll never be able to live down the fact, forget the Langford bill that said we're going to let in 5,000 people a day. That's stupid. Because they decided not to take action on a bill that was not good. That somehow is how she's better on the border, proposing a bill that didn't even get passed? Come on. The reality here is this. Biden made her the czar. Biden put her in charge. Biden said she speaks for me. Listen to this.
Quote unquote border czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
People gonna have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. You know, she was the border czar.
Calling her sort of the border czar, which wasn't necessarily the case.
So the border, if they were...
So there you have it. Right, the media themselves. She's the border czar. No, she's not. Now they're falling back on their sword here, saying no. What I meant was, you can't have it both ways. And there's the clip of Biden, and you've all heard that. And I'll dig it up and we'll play it again. And when we come back from the break, the bottom line here is this is difficult for Kamala Harris. You can't just go on TV and say she's handling the border better than Trump. You can't. It's just not going to work. There's way too many people that know exactly what's going on. Especially if they live in New York, especially if they live in Florida, especially if they live in an area where they've been flooded by these immigrants. Enough is enough, like Roberto Duran said, right? No mas. America can't take it anymore. Your calls and more coming up right now. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5500. 5337 833 4Valdez. That's Valdez with an S.
Now, Vice President Kamala Harris is stepping into a new role, taking the lead on the immigration crisis for the White House.
And with pressure growing on the Biden administration, the president tapping Vice President Kamala Harris to take the lead.
I think the best thing to do is to put someone who, when he or she speaks, they don't have to wonder about, is that what the president is? When she speaks for me.
President Joe Biden on Wednesday put Vice President Kamala Harris in charge of efforts to stem the flow of migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border that has led to a surge in unaccompanied children and an overcrowding of processing facilities.
But the vice president's agreed
to be the point person on immigration.
Madam Vice President, thank you. I gave you a tough job.
There's no question that this is a challenging situation.
The situation centers around the biggest surge in migrants to cross the U.S.-Mexico border in 20 years.
Taking on the border crisis today, putting Vice President Kamala Harris in charge.
Federal facilities being overwhelmed by the number of unaccompanied minors arriving each and every day.
There you have it. Multiple news reports, multiple clips citing Joe Biden himself appointing Kamala Harris as the White House point person on the border. And all of them calling her the border czar. Why? Because the argument's not over the title, right? If you make somebody the director of ONDCP, the Office of National Drug Control Policy, right? They, in effect, become the drug czar, right? And that was a term from the Reagan years. I get it. But it's not the exact title. What I'm saying is somebody might say the border chief, the head of the border issues, whatever it is. We're not debating the terminology. We're debating the formality of it. This happened. Biden made her this person. She's trying to say she only went to the Northern Triangle countries and said, oh, hello, don't come. Tell me why you're coming here. Oh, because you hate us because of Reagan. Got it. Super. And that was the extent of the White House taking the lead? No. Sorry. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it because it doesn't go in the direction of what I want to believe. I just don't buy it because it doesn't make sense. Why would we have all this fanfare about this announcement of somebody who's taken the lead on the border and then only make one trip overseas and one trip to the border, and not even the border? She showed up in El Paso, Texas. It's southern Texas for sure, but she wasn't in Brownsville. She wasn't at the Rio Grande. She wasn't there like so many conservatives like Trump when he goes down there. He was on the river with the Border Patrol Council behind him. So, I mean, it just doesn't compare. The record doesn't compare. The Border Patrol Council, the union that represents border agents, endorsed Trump. They've been on this program, right? Art Del Cueto, Brandon Judd. These guys have been on this program, countless others. Mark Morgan, Tom Homan. They've all been on this program praising Trump and beating up the Biden-Harris administration for a horrible job that they've done. So this is one she doesn't get to live down. Anyway, let us continue. Where do we go? Let's go to John. John is on the road. What city, state, and country are you in, John?
I'm in Mississippi.
Oh, where in Mississippi?
Oh, around Laurel, Mississippi, Hattiesburg, that area.
Nice. We're on a dozen stations in Mississippi, so shout out to all of those stations. And what's on your mind? What do you want to say tonight?
Okay, well, I listen to you every night, and I enjoy your program. But, everybody talks about we need to be lenient with these Hamas people. These
who's talking about that?
All the Democrats and the people that say we ought to have a ceasefire and all this kind of stuff,
I see.
The people that say it, to my way of thinking, and most of the people I know in this part of the country, ever since the earliest times since we've been a country, if there's any danger, we put the women and children behind us. We don't hide behind them. We don't put them out there in front. To me, They're just a bunch of cowards that hide behind women, and Israel ought to go ahead and finish what they need to do. You know, that's just my thought on it.
Well, I think that's the position that Netanyahu has taken and that the Israelis are taking as well. And I think most people want to see that happen as well. When you have a terrorist group that is this, I'm going to go with evil, right? This evil that they're going to hide in hospitals, they're going to hide in schools, they're going to use women and children as human shields. This is, and some of them are willing participants, which is even worse. It's a very, very vicious ideology that they espouse. And I'm not talking about their religion. I'm talking about their terrorism. There's only one way to root out these terrorists, because if you do like we do and put them in jail in Gitmo and say you're getting the death penalty, guess what? 20 some odd years later, these two guys in Gitmo are still there, or three guys, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and his band of merry pendejos. They're all going to continue life in Club Fed in Cuba. And last I checked, the weather's really nice in Cuba. How bad could it be? So, yeah, I'm with you, John. I think we do have to finish the job. It's not we, it's them, and it's their safety and the continued existence of their country. So I think they don't really have an option this time around, especially with Israel now being faced with a threat from Iran because of the strike on the guy that they killed in Tehran, where now the Iranians are saying they want to come after the Israelis. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm not hopeful it's going to get better. I think it's going to get worse. John, thanks for the call. Folks, we're coming right back with the speed round. North Dakota, Rochester, Minnesota, Bloomington, Illinois, Zanesville, Ohio, Evergreen, Montana, and more. Don't go anywhere.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, let's go to the phones. It's the speed round. That means you got to cut out the pleasantries and the hellos, get straight to the meat and potatoes. Let's go to Fargo, North Dakota, WDAY. Jerry, go right ahead. Jerry, go for it. All right, Jerry's not available. Let's go to Jim, Rochester, Minnesota, KROC. Go for it. Looks like the phone broke again. All right, put him on hold. Let's see if it'll fix or something like that. Well, anyway, and both of these guys had good points. And Jim wants, from what I see on my call screen, says that Jim wants to ask us why the Democrat Party hasn't put other candidates forward. They don't have a bench. They thought that Biden was going to be their guy and slam dunk it. A few people have tried to succeed, I think, in this time, and they haven't been effective. People like Gretchen Whitmer, people like Gavin Newsom. I think Gavin Newsom was, 100% in the clear in his mind that he was going to become president of the United States eventually. And here he is now. He's not even in the running right now because he's done such a poor job in California that he's got some fixing to do. So he can leave and try and salvage himself for the next go-round. So, yeah, they don't have a bench. We have quite a bench. Look at how robust our primary was. Look at the Democrat primary. Nobody. RFK Jr. got kicked out, decided to do it as an independent. The other lady, Jill Stein, it's laughable. There's no bench. There's nobody running. That's the problem with coronations. People don't get involved. Becky in Bloomington, Illinois, WHOW, Zanesville, Ohio, WHIZ, Evergreen, Montana, KOFI, and everybody else that's on hold. My apologies. We will be getting to you tomorrow. I'm going to do that Judge Brown thing again. Hasta la próxima. I'm Rich Valdez.